This is not just any story. It is a true journey of struggle, hope, and transformation. By listening carefully and following along, you will improve your English reading, listening, and speaking skills, while also learning powerful life lessons that can help you in your own journey. Imagine waking up one ordinary morning, feeling safe and comfortable, and suddenly everything changes. Life can be unpredictable, and we never know when a single moment can turn everything upside down. This story will take you through the darkest times, the moments of despair when hope seems impossible, and the small sparks that lead to courage and growth. You will see how persistence, small steps, and choosing to rise again can create real change. I will guide you through every emotion, every challenge, and every lesson using clear and simple English so you can understand, learn, and even repeat sentences to practice your speaking. By the end of this story, you will not only have new English words and phrases, but you will also feel motivated to face your own challenges with strength and confidence. So, stay with me until the very end. Listen carefully, imagine the journey, and let the story inspire you. Every moment is important, and every word will help you grow in English and in life. Get ready, because this is the day everything changes. Together, we will learn, feel, and rise. Section 1. The Ordinary Life Before the Storm. I remember those mornings so clearly, as if they are frozen in time. The sound of the alarm was always the same. The same gentle music filled my room, pulling me out of sleep in the same way it had done for years. I would sit up slowly, rub my eyes, and stretch my arms, already knowing what the day would look like. Nothing surprising, nothing unusual, just another ordinary day in a life that felt safe, steady, and predictable. The sun would rise at its usual hour, painting soft gold across the curtains. I would walk to the kitchen, make my breakfast, and drink the same warm cup of tea. Sometimes I would stand by the window, looking at the street below. People passed by, always in a hurry, always carrying bags or rushing to work. I would watch them and think to myself, life is simple. Life is steady. And in those moments, I felt both comfort and boredom. Every morning followed the same pattern. I walked the same road to work, greeted the same people, and smiled politely at the same neighbors. The bakery on the corner always smelled of fresh bread, and I would often stop there, not because I was hungry, but because it gave me a sense of routine. The shopkeeper knew me, and we exchanged the same words every morning, like actors repeating lines in a play. I thought of it as my little world, safe and familiar. At work, the hours moved slowly, but without much struggle. I sat at my desk, completed my tasks, and chatted with colleagues about the weather, the news, or small, unimportant things. Nothing dramatic ever happened. Days blurred together until they felt almost identical. I thought I was content, and maybe I was. But deep inside, there was always a quiet voice, whispering that something was missing. That feeling grew in the evenings, when the world outside slowed down. I would come home, eat dinner, and sit on the same couch where I had always sat. The television played the same programs, and my phone showed the same scrolling images. It was all familiar, all safe, but sometimes I wondered, is this it? Is this all there is to life? I never spoke those thoughts aloud. On the surface, I seemed calm, steady, even happy. My friends said I was lucky to have stability, lucky to have comfort, and I believed them most of the time. but on nights when the house was quiet and the city sounds faded, I felt a kind of emptiness that I could not explain. It was not sadness exactly. It was not loneliness. It was something in between, a restless heart that longed for something bigger, but also feared what that change might cost. You see, comfort is a strange thing. It feels good, but it can also trap you. It makes you believe that tomorrow will look just like today, and maybe that is enough. But in the back of my mind, I wondered if I was hiding from something, hiding from risk, hiding from challenge, hiding from the unknown. The truth was, I was both safe and stuck. I was both happy and unfulfilled, and I did not know which side of me was stronger. Sometimes, as I walked home at sunset, I would see children running, chasing each other in the streets, full of energy and laughter. I envied them, not because of their youth, but because of their freedom. They lived in the moment, without fear of change. I, on the other hand, walked carefully, always on the same path, always with my eyes lowered. That contrast made me wonder. Had I lost something important? Had I traded passion for security? Still, I never acted on these thoughts. I told myself, one day maybe, one day I will try something different. One day I will be brave. But one day never came. Life went on, steady and unbroken. The seasons changed, the calendar moved forward, but my routine remained exactly the same. And perhaps that was the problem. I had built a life where nothing could surprise me. And yet, life was waiting with a surprise I could never have imagined. I often think about how fragile that balance was. I felt safe because everything seemed unshakable. But in reality, it was only an illusion. Safety can disappear in a single moment, a single phone call, a single accident, a single unexpected day. At the time, I did not know this truth. I thought tomorrow would always be like today, that the comfort I had built would last forever. I was wrong. There were small signs, if I look back now. Moments when the air felt heavier, when the silence around me seemed louder than usual. Moments when I sensed something was coming, though I could not name it. But I ignored those feelings. I told myself it was only my imagination. After all, nothing ever happened in my quiet little world. Why should it start now? And so I kept living day after day, unaware that I was walking toward a turning point. The day everything would change was closer than I thought. I did not see it, did not prepare for it, and perhaps I could not have prepared even if I had tried. If I close my eyes now, I can still picture that last ordinary morning. The same alarm, the same breakfast, the same road, the same bakery. I remember the sky was soft and clear, and I felt calm. Too calm. I had no idea that it was the final morning of the life I knew. That ordinary day was the beginning of everything extraordinary. And so, with every step I took, I was moving toward the moment that would break my routine forever. The moment that would tear apart the safe little world I had built and force me to face the unknown. At that time, I did not know it. I was only living as I always had. But soon, I would understand. Soon, everything would change. Section 2. The Shattering Moment. It was a day that began like all the others. The morning light was soft, almost gentle, as it slipped through the curtains. The air outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you believe the world is safe. I woke up with the same alarm, ate the same breakfast, and walked the same street I had walked 1,000 times before. Everything around me whispered routine, stability, and peace. But peace is fragile, and sometimes it breaks without warning. I still remember the exact moment. The memory is burned into me, as sharp and clear as if it happened yesterday. The clock showed 2:17 in the afternoon. I know this because I looked at it just seconds before everything shattered. The room was still. The hum of the fan, the soft tapping of a keyboard, the faint noise of traffic outside, it all blended into a normal, harmless soundscape. Nothing warned me of what was about to come. Nothing told me that my world was about to collapse. Then it happened. It came suddenly, like a storm breaking the silence of a summer day. A phone call, one message, one sentence that cut through me like a blade. I can still hear the voice on the other end, trembling, broken. The words were simple, but they carried a weight so heavy that I could not hold it. My knees felt weak. My hands trembled. The room seemed to spin, even though I was standing still. That was the moment my world cracked open. It felt impossible. Only minutes earlier I had been safe, untouched by chaos. Now, I was standing in the middle of it. My mind refused to believe it. I told myself it must be a mistake. Bad news belongs to other people, not to me. Tragedy lives in movies, in stories, in someone else's life. Not mine. Not here. But denial could not protect me. The truth was real, sharp, and merciless. The weather outside did not change. The sun kept shining. People kept walking on the streets. Cars honked in the distance. The world went on, blind to my disaster. And that was one of the hardest parts. How life around me stayed normal when my own life had just been broken. I wanted the skies to darken, the winds to scream, the earth to stop turning. But nothing happened. The world did not pause for my pain. It kept moving, as if nothing had happened at all. Inside me, though, everything was different. Fear rushed in, fast and overwhelming. My heart raced, my breath caught, and my mind spun in circles. Questions flooded me. Why? How? What now? There were no answers, only silence on the other side of my own thoughts. I felt small, powerless, like a child lost in a storm too big to fight. The safety I once believed in was gone. In its place stood only shock, disbelief, and grief too deep to name. That single moment created a line in my life, before and after. Before, there had been order. After, there was only chaos. Before, I walked with calm steps, trusting tomorrow. After, I could not even trust the next second. Before, I believed life was steady. After, I learned life can change in the blink of an eye. I remember leaving the room and stepping outside. The air was thick, though nothing in the weather had changed. My chest felt heavy, as if invisible hands were pressing against me. The streets I knew so well looked strange, almost hostile. Faces blurred as I walked, and voices sounded far away like echoes from another world. I was there, but not there, moving, but numb, alive, but broken. That day I realized how fragile everything truly is. The routines we depend on, the plans we make, the dreams we carry, they can all be undone in a single moment. I had spent years believing my life was strong, stable, and unshakable. But in one afternoon, all of it collapsed. The house I had built in my mind, the walls of safety and comfort, turned out to be made of glass. And with one strike, they shattered. Even now, I can close my eyes and return to that exact second. I can feel the vibration of the phone in my hand, hear the pause before the words came, sense the silence in the room just before it filled with pain. It is a memory that will never leave me, no matter how much time passes. Because that was the day everything changed. It was not just news. It was not just an event. It was the death of the person I had been before. I could never go back to that calm, ordinary life. No matter how much I longed for it, no matter how much I wished it, that chapter was gone forever. I had stepped into a new world, a darker one, an uncertain one, and I did not know if I was strong enough to survive it. That night I sat in silence, unable to eat, unable to sleep. My thoughts replayed the moment again and again, as if repeating it might change the outcome. But nothing changed. The truth stayed the same, no matter how hard I fought it. My body ached, my eyes burned, and my chest felt like it was carrying the weight of 1,000 stones. I wanted to run away, but there was nowhere to go. The pain followed me, pressed into me, and would not let me go. Somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The days ahead would not be easy. The storm had only just begun. But that night, all I could do was sit in the wreckage of what once was. My safe world was gone. My ordinary life had ended. And I was left standing in the ruins, wondering how I would ever find the strength to go on. Section 3. The days of darkness. The days that followed felt endless. Time slowed down, heavy and cruel, as if each hour was dragging me deeper into the shadows. The sun still rose and set, but for me, the light meant nothing. I lived inside a darkness that no lamp, no daylight, and no gentle word could touch. Life had changed in an instant, and now I was left in a place where everything felt broken. At night, sleep refused to come. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, my body exhausted but my mind wide awake. The silence of the night was not peaceful anymore. It was sharp, almost painful. Every small sound echoed loudly, the ticking of the clock, the creak of the floor, the faint hum of electricity. I wanted rest, but my thoughts kept returning to that moment, replaying it again and again, like a cruel film I could not turn off. I remembered the words, the tone, the suddenness. I remembered the way my heart had fallen apart, and the more I replayed it, the more I sank into despair. During the day, nothing felt real. I moved like a shadow, walking through the hours but never truly being present. Friends and family noticed. They tried to comfort me. They called, they visited, they offered food, advice, or simply their company. I was grateful, but their words fell flat against the wall of pain that surrounded me. They told me I would be okay. They told me I was strong. But their voices sounded distant, as if they were speaking from another world that I could no longer enter. There were moments when I wanted to believe them, moments when I wanted to reach out and hold on to their hope. But hope was too heavy for me then. My arms were too weak, my heart too broken. Every sentence of encouragement felt like a foreign language I could not understand. I nodded, I smiled weakly, but inside I was empty. Their hope did not live in me. Not yet. I stopped doing the things I used to enjoy. The morning walks, the bakery stops, the casual chats with neighbors, all of it disappeared. My body was alive, but my spirit was not. Food lost its taste. Music lost its beauty. Even laughter, when I heard it in the distance, felt like a cruel reminder of a world I no longer belonged to. Fear also grew inside me. Fear of tomorrow. Fear of facing another day that looked exactly like the last. Dark, heavy, and endless. I asked myself questions I could not answer. What is the point? Why keep going? How do I carry this pain? My mind offered no solutions, only more doubt, more fear, more silence. It was not only sadness, it was confusion too. One part of me wanted to fight, to rise, to push forward. Another part wanted to give up completely, to let the darkness win. I felt like two people living in one body, one weak and broken, the other whispering faintly that maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth holding on to. But the broken side was louder, stronger, and it kept pulling me down. Nights were the worst. In the quiet, memories grew louder. I could see the moment again in perfect detail. The time on the clock, the stillness before the words, the sharpness of the voice that broke my world. It was as if the past had trapped me, locking me in a prison of repetition. I thought, if I could only go back, if I could only change one thing. But time is merciless. It moves forward even when we are stuck. And I was stuck, drowning in memories I could not escape. Sometimes I sat by the window and watched people walk by. They looked so normal, so full of life. I envied them. I wondered if they knew how lucky they were to walk in the light, to live without this weight pressing on their chest. I wanted to be them, but I was not. I was trapped behind an invisible wall, separated from their joy, separated from their normality. People told me that time heals everything, but in those days, time was not a healer. Time was an enemy. Every morning I woke up to the same heaviness, and every night I went to bed with the same ache in my chest. Days did not heal me. They only repeated my pain. I wanted to believe in healing, but I could not see it. All I could see was the darkness pressing closer, the light slipping further away. Yet even in that darkness, a small question began to form. It was not a loud question, not even a hopeful one. It was just a whisper in the silence, almost hidden beneath the weight of despair. The question was simple. Is this the end? I did not know the answer. Part of me thought yes. Part of me believed I would never escape, that I would live forever in this shadow. But another part, deep inside, wondered if there could be more, wondered if there might be a way forward, even if I could not see it yet. That question stayed with me, faint but persistent, like the soft glow of a candle in a room filled with night. For now, though, the days remained dark. I lived each one as if I were carrying stones on my back, barely able to stand. But that question, is this the end, was the first crack in the silence. It was the beginning of something I could not yet name. Section 4. The first spark of hope. The darkness had become my world. For days, maybe weeks, I walked through the same heavy silence, believing nothing would ever change. Each morning felt like another stone placed on my chest, and each night felt like another reminder that the pain would not leave. I had almost accepted it, that this was my life now, a life without light, without joy, without purpose. But then something happened, something small, something so simple that, at first, I almost ignored it. It began with a voice, not a loud one, not even strong. It was the gentle voice of a stranger. I remember walking down the street, head lowered, my eyes staring at the ground. I had not spoken much to anyone, not even to those who loved me. But this stranger, an older woman I had never seen before, looked at me as we passed. She paused, smiled, and said softly, "You look tired, but you're stronger than you think." Her words stopped me. Just a stranger, just one line. But in that single moment, I felt something shift. For weeks, I had been told by friends and family that I was strong, that I would be okay, but their words had been drowned out by my despair. Yet somehow, this stranger's voice broke through the silence. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, as if she truly believed it. Or maybe it was because she had no reason to lie. Whatever the reason, her words stayed with me long after she walked away. That night, when I lay in bed, I heard her voice again in my mind. "You're stronger than you think." I repeated it to myself, unsure if it was true. At first, it felt impossible. I did not feel strong. I felt broken. But the more I whispered it, the more it began to soften the weight inside me. Could it be true? Could there still be strength left in me, hidden under the pain? The next morning, I tried something I had not done in weeks. I opened the window. It sounds small, but for me, it was a challenge. The air that rushed in was cold, sharp, and fresh. I breathed deeply, filling my lungs. For a moment, I felt alive again. It was not happiness. It was not healing. But it was something. A spark. Of course, the spark was fragile. That same day, I tried to go for a short walk. I managed a few steps outside, but then the memories returned. The pain rushed back, heavy and cruel, and I had to stop. I wanted to give up again, to run back to the safety of my room, to close the window and hide. But before I turned back, I remembered the woman's words. "You're stronger than you think." I stood there on the sidewalk, shaking, tears in my eyes, and I told myself those words again. And this time, I took one more step forward. Just one step. But that one step was a victory. The days that followed were still hard. Darkness does not disappear overnight. There were moments when I felt like I was back at the beginning, drowning again in hopelessness. But in those moments, I held on to that small spark. I told myself that even the smallest light is still light. Even a weak flame can grow if I protect it, if I feed it, if I do not let it die. I began to collect these small sparks, like pieces of broken glass, slowly forming a new picture. A kind message from a friend, a memory of laughter from years ago, the warmth of the sun on my skin, the sound of children playing in the distance. All of these became reminders that life still held beauty, even if I could not always see it. One evening, I remembered something someone once told me long ago. When you feel like you cannot go on, just do one small thing. One small thing is enough. That night, my small thing was writing in a notebook. Just one sentence. Today, I opened the window. It was not much, but when I looked at the words, I felt proud. I had done something. I had moved. I had chosen life, even in the smallest way. The next day, I wrote another sentence. Today, I walked for 5 minutes. Then another. Today, I smiled at a stranger. Each sentence was proof that I was still trying, proof that I had not completely given up. It was a way of fighting back against the darkness, step by step, word by word. Of course, there were still failures. Some days I could not write anything. Some days I could not leave the house. On those days, the voice of despair tried to return, telling me I was weak, that I was wasting my time. But then I would open the notebook and see the proof of my effort. The spark was still alive, even on the hard days, and slowly, the spark began to grow. I realized something important. Courage is not always big. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes courage is simply opening a window, or taking a single step, or writing one sentence. Sometimes Courage is trying again after you fail. That was how my hope was born, not as a bright fire that burned away all darkness, but as a tiny flame that flickered in the wind. I had to protect it, feed it, and believe in it. It was fragile, yes, but it was also real. And even the smallest flame can light up the darkest night. For the first time in a long while, I began to wonder not only, is this the end, but also, could this be the beginning? The thought scared me, but it also gave me strength. Perhaps my story was not finished. Perhaps there was more waiting for me, beyond the shadows. And so, with shaky steps, with weak hands, with a heart that still ached, I began to move forward again. Not fast, not perfectly, but forward. The days of despair were not over, but they were no longer the only days I had. I had hope now, small and fragile, but hope all the same. And hope, no matter how small, has the power to grow. Section 5. The struggle to rise again. Hope was not enough on its own. I had learned to protect the small spark inside me, but now I faced a new challenge, turning that spark into action. It was not easy. In fact, it was harder than I imagined. Pain still lived with me every day, and fear whispered in my ear whenever I tried to move forward. But I also knew one truth. If I stayed down, I would never rise again. I began with small goals. My first was simply to wake up earlier. For weeks, I had stayed in bed long after the sun had risen, hiding from the day. Now I told myself, just get out of bed when the light comes in. The first morning, it felt impossible. My body was heavy, my thoughts were heavy, everything pulled me back under the blankets. But I forced myself to place one foot on the floor, then the other. When I finally stood up, it felt like climbing a mountain. My heart beat fast, not from fear, but from effort. That small act, rising with the sun, was my first victory. Encouraged, I set another goal, to take a short walk every day. At first, I only walked to the end of the street. My legs felt weak, and every sound around me felt too loud. Children laughing, cars passing, doors closing, ordinary noises that now seemed overwhelming. Sometimes I would stop and want to turn back, but then I remembered, one more step. I whispered it to myself like a secret. And each day, I managed a little farther. Of course, I failed many times. Some mornings, I could not get out of bed. Some days, I could not face the world outside my door. Those failures cut deeply. I hated myself for being weak. I wondered if I was making progress at all. But then I remembered something I had written in my notebook. Falling is not the end. Staying down is. I read those words again and again. They reminded me that even if I fell today, I could try again tomorrow. Failure was not final. It was only part of the process. So, I learned to celebrate small wins. Waking up on time, cooking a simple meal, smiling, even if only for a moment. Each little success became a stone, and slowly, I was building a new foundation for my life. The stones were not perfect, and the foundation shook at times, but it was mine, and it was growing stronger each day. The hardest part was facing my fears. Pain makes you want to hide, but hiding does not heal. I knew I had to step into the things that scared me. The first time, it was something simple, answering a phone call. My heart raced, my hands shook, and I wanted to ignore it. But I picked it up. My voice was weak, but I spoke. And when the call ended, I realized nothing terrible had happened. I had survived. That gave me courage to try again. Then came bigger challenges. visiting a place that held painful memories, talking to someone I had avoided for months, standing in front of people when I felt small and broken inside. Each time, fear screamed at me to stop, but I kept repeating, one more step. Sometimes I succeeded. Sometimes I failed and ran back. But even in failure, I knew I was trying, and trying itself was proof of strength. What surprised me most was how strength grew slowly, quietly, like a seed beneath the soil. I did not wake up one day healed. I did not suddenly feel whole again. Instead, I noticed small changes. My steps became steadier, my sleep less restless. My laughter, though rare, came more easily. Each little change was proof that persistence was working. Progress was not fast, but it was real. There were moments, however, when doubt returned. I would look at how far I still had to go and feel overwhelmed. "You are still broken," the dark voice inside me whispered. "You will never be the same." And maybe the voice was right. I would never be the same as before. But slowly, I began to see that being the same was not the goal. I did not need to return to who I once was. I needed to become someone new, someone shaped not only by pain, but also by persistence. One evening, after a long walk, I stopped to watch the sunset. The sky burned with orange and gold, and for the first time in months, I did not feel heavy. Instead, I felt proud. Proud that I had not given up. Proud that I had kept moving, even when it was slow, even when it hurt. In that moment, I realized something important. Persistence is not about winning every battle. It is about refusing to leave the battlefield. And so, my days became a rhythm of falling and rising, failing and trying again. Some days were bright, others dark, but each day I stood up, I became a little stronger. Each time I faced fear, I became a little braver. It was during one of these days, just when I was starting to believe in my own progress, that life gave me a bigger test. A test that would show me whether my new strength was real or only fragile. I did not ask for this challenge, and I was not ready for it. But life does not wait for us to be ready. It arrives when it chooses, and it demands that we rise or fall. As the test approached, I felt the same fear I had felt on that first morning when I tried to get out of bed. My heart pounded, my hands shook, and doubt filled my mind. But I also heard another voice, quiet but steady. You have faced the darkness before. You have risen before. You can rise again. This was the moment when persistence would no longer be just about small steps. It would be about proving to myself that even in the face of a greater storm, I would not break. The struggle to rise again was far from over. It was only beginning. Section 6. The biggest challenge yet. Life has a way of testing us just when we think we are safe. After weeks of slow progress, I began to believe that maybe I was healing. I could rise earlier. I could take walks. I could even smile without forcing it. The small victories built my confidence, but deep inside, I knew I had not yet faced a real storm, and storms always come. The challenge arrived without warning. An opportunity appeared, something I could not ignore, but also something that terrified me. It was a job interview. To some, that might sound ordinary, but for me, it was a mountain. I had been away from the world for too long. My skills felt rusty. My confidence was fragile. The thought of sitting in front of strangers, answering questions, and proving my worth filled me with dread. At first, I wanted to refuse. My old habits whispered, "Stay safe, stay small. You are not ready." But another voice, quieter but stronger, reminded me of the truth. If I kept hiding, I would never grow. This was not just about a job. It was about proving to myself that I could face the world again. The days before the interview were heavy with fear. Each night I lay awake, my thoughts spinning. What if I fail? What if I forget my words? What if they see my weakness? Fear painted 1,000 pictures of disaster. My heart raced, my hands trembled, and for a moment, I felt like I was back at the beginning, broken and helpless. But then I remembered what I had learned. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward even when fear walks beside you. So I prepared, not because I felt ready, but because I refused to let fear win. I practiced answers in the mirror. I wrote notes and read them aloud. My voice cracked at first, but each time I repeated the words, I grew a little steadier. The morning of the interview arrived. My alarm rang, and I stood at the edge of my bed, frozen. My chest was tight, my throat dry. For a moment, I thought of giving up. But then I whispered the phrase that had carried me through so many struggles. One more step. I dressed carefully, my hands fumbling with the buttons, and left the house. The air outside was cold, sharp against my skin, but it woke me. It reminded me that I was alive, and that was enough. Walking to the building felt like walking into battle. Each step echoed with doubt. When I finally stood in front of the door, I almost turned back. The glass reflected my face, tired, nervous, unsure. But I also saw something else: determination. My reflection looked fragile, but it also looked brave. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and walked in. The waiting room was quiet, filled with others who looked confident, prepared, and strong. I felt small among them, like a child pretending to be an adult. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. I sat down, trying to steady my breathing. You do not need to be perfect, I told myself. You just need to try. When my name was called, my legs shook as I stood. The walk to the interview room felt endless, but each step was a victory. The door closed behind me, and suddenly it was just me and the interviewers. Their eyes felt sharp, their questions sharper. My mouth went dry, and for a second, I froze. Then I remembered the walks, the small victories, the battles I had already fought. I remembered that I had survived nights of despair, mornings of fear, days of struggle. Compared to that, this was only another step. My voice was shaky at first, but I spoke. The words came slowly, but they came. Each answer built on the last. With every sentence, I felt a little stronger, a little braver. There were moments when fear tried to pull me back, a question I did not expect, a silence that felt too long. My thoughts stumbled, and I wanted to run, but instead, I breathed deeply and continued. I reminded myself, falling is not the end. Staying down is, and I would not stay down. By the time the interview ended, I was exhausted, my body heavy with relief. I did not know if I had succeeded. I did not know if they would choose me. But strangely, that did not matter. What mattered was that I had walked into the storm and stayed standing. I had faced fear and spoken anyway. When I stepped outside, the sun was shining, golden and warm. I lifted my face to it and smiled, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because I knew I had taken a step that could never be taken away. Success or failure no longer defined me. Persistence did. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the journey. I thought about the darkness that once felt endless, the small spark of hope that grew, and the slow struggle to rise again. And now, this challenge, this test of everything I had rebuilt. I had not been fearless, but I had been brave. And that was enough. The outcome of the interview would come later, but the outcome of the challenge was already clear. I was no longer only surviving. I was growing. Something had shifted inside me, something deep and permanent. I was not the same person who once hid from life. I was someone stronger, someone who could face the storms and still rise. And in that realization, I felt the beginning of transformation. Not just survival, not just persistence, but true growth. The kind of growth that turns wounds into wisdom, pain into strength, and fear into courage. This was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would no longer walk only in the shadow of loss, but also in the light of possibility. Section 7. Transformation begins. The morning after the interview, I woke up with a different feeling inside me. For months, I had opened my eyes with heaviness, as if the day was a burden waiting to press me down. But that morning was not the same. The air felt lighter. The light through the window seemed brighter. My first thought was not about fear or failure. It was about possibility. Something had shifted deep within me. The challenge I had faced had not erased my struggles, but it had planted a new truth in me. I was stronger than I believed. I had walked into a place that once felt impossible, and I had survived. That survival was not just about the interview. It was about facing my fear and refusing to bow to it. For the first time in a long while, I felt proud of myself. Pride was not an emotion I knew well. For months, I had lived with shame, weakness, and doubt. But now, pride rose like a fire in my chest, warming me from the inside out. I sat up in bed, stretched my arms wide, and whispered a simple thought. I am not the same person I was. The days that followed reflected this change. My mornings grew stronger. I no longer dragged myself out of bed. I rose with purpose. I opened the curtains and let the sunlight fill my room, as if I were inviting brightness into my life. Even the simple act of making my bed felt different. Before, it was just a chore, something small and meaningless. But now, it felt like proof that I could bring order into my world. When I walked outside, my steps felt lighter. The streets were the same, the people the same, but my eyes were new. I noticed colors I had ignored before, the green of trees, the blue of the sky, the golden light on buildings. Each sight felt sharper, more alive. The world had not changed, but I had. And because I had changed, the world looked new. Confidence began to grow inside me, not in loud or obvious ways, but quietly, steadily. I started to speak with more strength. My voice, once soft and shaky, carried a new tone. It no longer sounded like someone afraid of being heard. It sounded like someone who believed they had a right to speak. With each small task I completed, my energy renewed. Washing dishes, preparing food, walking to the store, things that once felt heavy now felt like proof of life. Even failure, when it came, no longer crushed me. I remembered that falling is part of growth, not the end of it. Every mistake became a lesson, every setback a chance to rise again. The old version of me, the one who lived in darkness, who doubted every step, who feared every challenge, still whispered from time to time. But now that voice no longer ruled me. It was like an echo, faint and distant. In its place, a stronger voice had grown, a voice that said, "You are capable, you are stronger, you are becoming new." One afternoon, I stood in front of a mirror and studied my reflection. My face had not changed, but I saw someone different. My eyes looked clearer, filled with a light that had been missing. My posture was straighter, my shoulders no longer bent by invisible weight. I smiled, not to pretend, but because I truly felt joy rising from within. That smile was a symbol of rebirth. This transformation was not about perfection. It was not about becoming fearless or flawless. It was about discovering strength I never believed I had. It was about walking through pain and finding pride on the other side. It was about choosing to live fully, even when fear still knocked at my door. As I grew stronger, my thoughts began to shift outward. Before, survival had been my only focus. Every day was about holding myself together, about not collapsing under the weight of despair. But now, I felt something new, the desire to give. The thought rose slowly, gently, like dawn spreading across the sky. What if my story could help someone else? What if my strength was not just for me, but for others too? This idea gave me purpose. It filled my chest with a new kind of energy, bigger than pride, deeper than joy. It was the energy of meaning. I no longer wanted only to survive. I wanted to create a life worth living. I wanted to take the lessons of my struggle, the pain, the hope, the persistence, and use them to bring light to others who were still in darkness. And so, the transformation continued. Each day I grew into a stronger version of myself, one built not on perfection, but on persistence, not on ease, but on courage. My mornings began with gratitude. My steps carried determination. My heart carried hope. I knew challenges would still come. Life would still test me. Fear would still visit. But I was no longer the same. I had discovered that weakness can turn into strength, that despair can give birth to hope, and that the end of oneself can be the beginning of another. This was not just recovery. This was rebirth. And as I stood on this new ground, I realized something beautiful. The journey was no longer just about me. It was about the people I could reach, the kindness I could give, and the light I could share. Transformation had begun, not only in my own life, but in the possibility of helping others rise too. The old self had been broken. The new self was being built, stronger, brighter, and ready to step into the world with courage. Section 8. Giving back to others. When I began to feel stronger inside, I realized something important. My story was not only for me. The struggle I had gone through, the pain I had carried, and the courage I had found, it all felt too heavy to keep hidden in silence. Healing had begun in my heart, but it grew deeper when I thought about sharing it with others. At first, the thought frightened me. What if people judged me? What if they thought I was weak? For so long, I had carried my suffering in silence because I believed no one would understand. But one quiet evening, I remembered how a stranger's small act of kindness once gave me hope. That memory opened my eyes. If one person's kindness could help me, maybe my story could help someone else. Maybe my voice, once silent, could become a light for another person who was walking through darkness. I decided to start small. I spoke to a friend, one I trusted deeply, and I told them about my struggles. My voice trembled at first, but I kept going. To my surprise, my friend did not turn away. They listened. They nodded. And then, With gentle words, they said, "I've felt like that too." Those words filled me with warmth. I was not alone, and neither were they. In sharing my pain, I discovered connection. From that day, I began to open myself more. I shared pieces of my story with others, sometimes with a coworker, sometimes with a neighbor, sometimes with someone I met online. Every time I spoke, I felt lighter. And every time someone said, "I understand," or "I've been there too," I realized how many people carried silent battles inside their hearts. Helping others did not always mean giving advice. Often, it simply meant listening, being present, and saying, "You are not alone." Sometimes I shared encouragement, reminding others that even the smallest step forward matters. Other times I just sat quietly, letting them know their pain was seen. In those moments I understood something powerful. Healing is not only found in being strong for yourself, it is also found in being strong for others. One day I joined a support group. We sat in a circle, each person holding their own story of struggle. At first I listened quietly, but soon I found myself speaking too. I told them about my darkest days, about how I had almost given up, and about the small spark of hope that helped me rise again. As I spoke, I saw faces lift. Some had tears in their eyes, others nodded with quiet understanding. My story did not erase their pain, but it gave them a reminder. If I could rise again, so could they. That day, I felt a new kind of strength. It was different from the pride I had felt after facing my challenges. This strength was softer, yet deeper. It came from knowing that my pain had been transformed into something useful. The very experiences that once broke me were now giving life to others. Slowly, giving back became part of my life. I volunteered at a community center, offering time to listen to young people who felt lost. I visited an elderly neighbor who lived alone, sharing tea and simple conversation. I encouraged friends when they doubted themselves, reminding them that failure is not the end. Each act of kindness was small, but together they created a ripple of hope. Through these moments, I learned an important truth. Pain can turn into power when it is shared with love. My darkest memories no longer controlled me. Instead, they became tools to reach others, to show them that survival is possible, that light can return even after the deepest night. The more I gave, the more I healed. Each smile I saw, each thank you I heard, filled me with meaning. Life was no longer about just surviving my own battles. It was about walking beside others in theirs. My heart grew wider, my spirit stronger. Helping others gave me something that success or achievement alone could not give: purpose. Sometimes people ask me how I found the courage to keep going. My answer was simple: because someone gave me hope once, and now I want to pass it on. That is the power of kindness. It does not stop with one person. It travels from heart to heart, lighting new flames along the way. Looking back, I saw how far I had come. The person who once sat in silence, drowning in despair, had now become someone who could lift others with words of encouragement. The one who once hid from the world now reached out with open hands. My suffering had not been wasted. It had been transformed into strength, and that strength had turned into service. This was true healing, not the kind that erases scars, but the kind that turns scars into stories, stories that remind others that healing is possible. My voice, once broken, now carried hope. My heart, once heavy, now carried love. And in giving to others, I discovered the greatest lesson of all. We rise higher when we rise together. Through kindness, empathy, and encouragement, I had found a deeper meaning in my journey. My story was no longer just about me. It was about all the lives I could touch. And that truth gave me a peace I had never known before. Section 9. The day everything truly changed. When I look back now, I realize that the day everything changed was not the day of the tragedy. It was not the moment when life fell apart or when fear took hold. That day was only the beginning of the journey. The real change came later, in the days, weeks, and months that followed, when I had to decide whether to remain in despair or to rise again. I remember that first day vividly, the quiet before the storm, the shock that froze me in place, the fear that seemed to swallow everything I knew. Back then, I felt powerless. My life had been ordinary, predictable, and safe. I walked familiar streets, heard familiar sounds, and followed familiar routines. And suddenly, it was gone. Everything I had taken for granted disappeared in an instant. I was broken. At first, I thought the tragedy had defined me. I thought my life would always be marked by that moment of loss. The darkness was so heavy that I could not see a way forward. I replayed the events in my mind again and again, asking why it had happened to me, wondering if I would ever be the same. The person I was before that day, carefree, comfortable, and maybe a little naive, was gone. But then something remarkable happened. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to make choices. I chose to rise out of bed when I felt like giving up. I chose to take a step forward even when fear told me to turn back. I chose to face small challenges, one at a time, until the spark of hope inside me began to grow. And with each choice, I discovered a new part of myself, a strength I had not known existed, a courage that had been hidden beneath the weight of despair. The real transformation came not from what happened to me, but from how I responded. The tragedy was the same for everyone involved, but the difference lay in the choices I made afterward. I could have stayed broken, swallowed by fear and sorrow, or I could rise step by step and slowly reclaim my life. I chose to rise. As I look at my life now, I see how far I have come. The mornings are brighter. My steps are steadier. My heart carries hope instead of fear. I am not the person I once was, and I am grateful for that. The pain I endured has not disappeared, but it has shaped me into someone stronger, someone more compassionate, someone who understands the fragility and the value of life. The contrast between my past self and my present self is remarkable. I used to hide from the world, afraid of failure, afraid of pain, afraid of judgment. I thought my comfort was safety, but it had been a cage. Now, I step into life with purpose, seeking growth and connection. I know that fear may return, that challenges may appear, but I also know that I have the strength to face them. The person I was before, the ordinary, fearful, and fragile version of myself, would not recognize the person I am today. What changed me was not just survival, but the decision to live fully despite the pain. It was the choice to keep going, to take one step after another, to protect the small spark of hope until it became a flame. It was the willingness to feel deeply, to suffer, to try, to fail, and to rise again. Each moment of courage, each act of persistence became a brick in the foundation of a new life. I also learned that true change does not happen alone. The kindness of strangers, the support of friends, the encouragement I received along the way, these became part of my journey. They reminded me that even in the darkest times, connection and love can help us find our way. And now, in giving back to others, I discovered a deeper sense of purpose. The strength I gained from my struggles became a tool to help others rise. The day everything truly changed was the day I chose hope over despair. It was the day I understood that loss does not have to define us, that tragedy does not have to destroy us. It was the day I realized that brokenness can lead to growth, that endings can become beginnings, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Looking back, I see the journey in its entirety, the darkness, the spark of hope, the struggle to rise again, the biggest challenges, and the moments of transformation. Each step built on the last, each choice leading to the next. And now, I stand in a place of strength, light, and purpose, able to see the beauty in life once more. The lesson I carry from this journey is simple, but powerful. Life will change unexpectedly, and pain may come without warning. But the true measure of change is not what happens to us. It is what we do in response. Every choice, every act of courage, every moment we choose to rise again is part of the day everything changes for the better. I understand now that life is fragile, but it is also precious. Each day is an opportunity to grow, to learn, to connect, and to help others. The person I am today is not perfect, but I am alive, resilient, and determined. The tragedy that once defined me no longer has power over me, because I chose to reclaim my life and turn it into something meaningful. And so, when I think about that day, the day everything changed, I do not see only loss. I see the beginning of a journey that taught me strength, hope, and purpose. I see the moment when I discovered that even after the darkest night, we can find light, and even when life breaks us, we have the power to rebuild. That is the day everything truly changed, not because of what was lost, but because of what I chose to become. Section 10. The Lesson of Never Giving Up. If there is one thing I have learned on this journey, it is this: never give up. Life will test you. It will surprise you, sometimes in ways that feel unbearable. Pain will come, loss will come, and fear will come. But no matter how dark it seems, there is always a way forward. There is always a chance to rise again. I want you to imagine yourself in the moments I have described. Imagine waking up to a life that feels broken, walking through streets that feel empty, and facing days that feel heavier than your own strength. That was me. And yet, even in those moments, I discovered a truth that changed everything. Giving up is a choice, and so is persistence. You can choose to surrender to darkness, or you can choose to keep moving, step by step, no matter how small the steps may be. Hope often comes quietly. It is a soft voice inside you, a spark that refuses to die, even when everything else feels impossible. I remember when I first heard that voice, the gentle words of a stranger, the memory of encouragement, the tiny flame that told me, "You can rise again." That spark changed everything because I chose to protect it, to nurture it, and to act on it. And that is what you must do too. Even the smallest act of courage matters. Life does not promise us ease. It does not promise that the path will be straight or smooth. You will fall. You will fail. You will doubt yourself, and sometimes the world will seem against you. But every fall is not the end. Every failure is not permanent. Each time you get up, you build strength, Each time you try again, you grow. Strength is forged in the moments when we feel weakest, and courage is discovered when we feel most afraid. I learned that persistence is not about winning every battle or never feeling pain. It is about refusing to stay down. It is about standing, even when your body shakes, even when your heart trembles, even when your mind screams to stop. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. Every effort to keep going is proof of your resilience. You may feel lost now. You may feel broken or hopeless. But remember, the darkest night is often the moment before the dawn. Pain can teach you lessons. Suffering can give you strength. And loss can show you what truly matters. What matters is not the tragedy itself, but how you respond to it. You can allow fear to control you, or you can choose to face it and rise above it. That is the power of never giving up. I also learned that sharing your strength can multiply it. When I began helping others, speaking my story, encouraging someone in pain, I realized that my own heart healed even more. Helping others does not only give them hope, it reinforces your own courage and purpose. Life becomes brighter when we lift each other, when we speak words of encouragement, when we choose kindness even in the midst of struggle. You have the power to do the same. Every act of persistence, every small choice to keep moving forward, every effort to learn, grow, or help someone else, it matters. Each one is a step toward a life that is richer, stronger, and more meaningful. Your journey, like mine, may be filled with obstacles, but it is also filled with opportunities to discover the light within you. Learning English, just like life, is a journey of persistence. Some days are hard, some words are difficult, some sentences do not make sense at first. But every time you practice, every time you speak, every time you listen and read, you are rising. You are building strength. You are proving to yourself that you can do more than you imagined. The lessons of life and the lessons of language are the same. Patience, courage, and never giving up lead to growth. So I speak to you now, directly. No matter what challenges you face, do not give up. Do not let fear stop you. Do not let darkness convince you that light cannot return. Each step you take matters. Each small victory builds the foundation for a stronger, brighter life. Your story is still being written, and every choice to keep going is a word in that story, a word of courage, a word of hope. When you feel despair, remember that the spark is still inside you. Protect it, nurture it. Let it guide you through the moments when the world feels heavy. And when you rise again, and you will discover the strength, hope, and purpose that were always waiting inside you. I am grateful for the journey, even for the pain, because it led me here. I am grateful for the moments of struggle, because they taught me persistence. I am grateful for the small sparks of hope, because they reminded me that life can always grow brighter. And I am grateful for the chance to share this story with you, in the hope that it may light a spark in your own life. The lesson is simple but powerful. Never give up. Rise again. Keep moving forward. Protect your hope, even when it feels fragile. Speak words of encouragement, even when you feel weak. Take small steps, even when the path seems long. Each step, each effort, each act of courage, no matter how small, brings you closer to the life you deserve. And finally, remember this. Life can change in a single moment, but the true power of change comes from your choices afterward. The day everything changed was not only the day of loss, It was the day I discovered that courage, persistence, and hope can transform any life. That day, and every day after it, is a chance to rise again. So rise, keep going, and never, ever give up. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this story. I hope it has inspired you as much as it has inspired me. Remember, every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow. Every fall is a chance to rise again, and every moment of struggle can teach you something important. By listening to and practicing stories like this, you are not only improving your English, but also learning lessons that can help you in real life. If you felt the emotions in this story, if you learned new words, or if you found motivation to keep going, then you have already taken a step forward. Practice speaking the sentences aloud, try to remember the key words, and use them in your own life. Stories like this are powerful because they help us learn both English and life skills at the same time. And don't forget, we upload new English learning videos every day. Each one is designed to help you improve your reading, listening, and speaking skills while inspiring you to become stronger and more confident. If you want to continue learning and growing, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Remember, learning English is a journey just like life itself. Take small steps, be patient with yourself, and never give up. You have the power to rise, to grow, and to achieve your goals. Thank you for being part of Read and Learn English, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.